Have you ever had a story that you were ready to write, or you were in the process of writing, or in the worst case, you had already written, and then you go to the movie theater, or you read a book, and someone already made that? So I recently had that experience. I have this sci-fi epic that's been cooking in my mind. I've also, at the same time, have been getting into Warhammer. So I know I've been watching Warhammer videos, and a bit of the lore has been seeping in, but I specifically know I didn't know about any of this stuff. But I read the first Horus Heresy book recently, and even though it's not exactly my story, I would say there are specific points in the book and specific beats, almost like 40%, that are exactly what happened in my book. Like I know the Horus Heresy like general story, but in no point in this book did I realize that they were going to go to a bug planet and like fight a war. That is a specific part of what I was planning in this sci-fi series that I eventually was going to write. Normally what I do is when I write a new story, I will plot out my like general idea, but it's not a beat sheet like for screenplays, or it's not like a full, it's not like a full beat sheet or anything. But I put scenes that I know about, and usually I write like the first scene and last scene because that's what drives me to write what I actually want to write. With this, I had a lot of ideas and notes cooking, and I decided that I just need to put it out on paper, even though I don't want to write the story yet. So I spent a night, and instead of working on this screenplay, I specifically just spent it working on the outline for essentially the overall series. So I put everything down, and then by the end, I realized, oh, there are a lot of similarities, but this isn't the same story, and that's totally okay. That's the good scenario, right? There's a lot of versions where you can write a story and then at the same time someone else is writing it and theirs is very similar to yours. And because they published theirs first, the truth is you copied their idea. It was not the other way around. They didn't copy you. You haven't written your product. You haven't put your product out. That means they were ahead of you on the timeline, so you actually were copying them. I know they talked about this on Script Notes, but basically the idea is that the minute you come up with a unique story, there's someone out there in the world that also has that same unique story. However, they just might not develop it, or they're still working on it. And I believe that is fairly true, actually. A lot of people like to pretend that they're super unique and they have only insights that they can have, but I don't generally believe that. There's billions of us. If you walk around, you're going to find a doppelganger. You're going to find people that are very similar. I think that happens creatively as well. The difference is not everyone has these opportunities to publish things, right? So because you have a Christopher Nolan, I'm sure there's another Christopher Nolan out there who essentially thinks the same way, but he's the only one that's going to get funding, so we're not going to see the other person's attempts or anything like that. You could also use this to your advantage. So because I read Horus Rising, I am able to essentially see a draft of my story, right? I can see things that I liked, I didn't like, and I can use that in my own work, and I can make what I consider to be a better version, or at least an equally good version, but we go a different direction. So I don't want anyone to get discouraged when you're like, oh, I went to the cinema. Oh, I had that exact horror movie idea. Well, that's totally okay because you get to see how it actually would work on screen. It's honestly awesome. So you get what? You get to see someone who spent $10 million in 4 years working on a product, and you get to see the final results. That's going to help you improve on your version. So the second level, this is fine as well, which is that you're not that person that pretends to be a writer. You actually put words to page. So you're developing your idea. You're working on your novel, you're working on your screenplay. And then the movie, then the book comes out and you realize, oh man, this is basically my exact idea. Well, that's great because once again, you can pivot, you can see what worked, what didn't work, and it allows you to be original in a new way. Remember, there's a lot of movies and there's a lot of books that are very similar, but they just take some minor turns and that ends up making a whole different product. Or a lot of people will compare things and they'll be like, I prefer this one. A lot of that really only comes down to like one or two major plot choices. So this gives you an opportunity to really dive in and flesh your story out and see what works and doesn't work. If I'm developing something and another version of it comes out, I get a little annoyed, but that's fine. The worst case scenario and the final scenario, you have your finished product. So you have a finished book, you have a finished screenplay that you've sent to multiple readers, you've done multiple drafts on. Not your first draft you've gone through, you spent the 5-6 months, maybe a year, maybe 4 years to finish your first draft, the months required to do each additional draft sense. You sent it off, you got good reviews, and you're excited about this product, or you have this book and it's ready to launch, and then you find out the product is exactly the same. Now that's an issue, and that's the one we always want to avoid, right? It's okay when we're still incubating and we're moving, but if we've actually committed all this time to a work and something the same just came out, that is That's a problem, and I feel for anyone there. Luckily, that hasn't happened to me. I don't know what I would do if that happened. I would be, I don't know, I'd be pretty pissed, honestly. The only advice I guess I would offer you is essentially it's the same thing, which is you probably need to go in and just take the lessons from this other script, go in and improve upon it. You probably just have to reopen up your work. That thing is no longer final because you can't copy another person's product. So you need to go in and try to improve upon it. There's also a lot of things where I hear people say, oh, they stole my idea. They stole my idea. Even in my family, my aunt told me a story about my grandma who was in Downey, California in like the 1960s and how she did like this big stage play. And it was like really popular, and someone from the TV industry came and basically they allegedly, can't verify any of this, they allegedly took all her story beats and put it into an episode of TV. Was that possible? Could that have happened? I mean, yes, it could have happened. Did it happen? I don't know if that really happened. What I bet was this person came and saw my grandma's play, and then they were inspired, or they were already working on a show about space. I wasn't able to figure out what show it was. I saw there was a couple around this time that it could have been, but essentially there's a couple shows about like Martians and Mars. And so I don't think it's outrageous to like have someone come watch a play that's also set in Mars and they work on a Mars television show, and then they go write something that has like a similar idea. There's only so many ideas, and if you're already in the same setting, I can see how that can like trick someone into thinking that they stole your idea. But who knows? Maybe my grandma did totally get ripped off and that dude just took it from her, and you know, it was the 1960s, so not much she could do about it. Even now, when people get accused of stealing stuff in Hollywood, it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens like 2 or 3 times a year. It's more fun when it's like an established Hollywood person and they're suing somebody. But even then, most of the time, like that shit gets settled out of court and, you know, there's like no actual case for it. And when it does go all the way, it seems like the person who stole the stuff never actually is like held liable for it. Is that because it's just so hard to prove in our legal system? Or is it because you actually didn't steal anything and you're not as original as you think? I don't want anyone to get discouraged because you read something and you're like, oh, this was my idea. You just need to keep writing. Just keep pushing, keep it going, and you're going to be fine. And worst case scenario, if you're so annoyed you don't want to work on it, or you don't want to open it up, I totally understand. You could, you know, it's practice. Like even if you write something really bad, it's practice. If you write something really good, it's practice. You know, you just got to get those reps in, right? You got to think like an athlete. Like, oh, I'm a wide receiver in the NFL. If it was a good practice or a bad practice, it doesn't matter. I practice, right? I got those reps. You know, I'm improving on my craft overall. Some days I'll be down, some days I'll be up. You should have multiple projects that are just like stirring in your mind and they're ready to go. You should have them written down. You should have them developed from what you know. All your notes should be organized. You should know, oh, I got this, I got this, I got this. Like me, I got like, if I sat and did nothing but write, I probably have like, I bet I have like currently an 8-year backlog. If I did nothing but write, there's just not enough time for me to get all my projects out. So you just need to realize that there's more to it. If you only have one idea, then I don't think that's gonna make it, right? I know there's like people romanticize, they're like, oh, I had this one idea, like J.K. Rowling, she's like, oh, you know, I had the Harry Potter world. You should have more than just that. You should have multiple things going in your mind. You shouldn't spend 10 years wasting your time hoping that this one project that you have hits. You should be working and developing other things. Doesn't mean that you give up on that initial project. I have a movie that I want to shoot in like late 2026, early 2027, but that requires me to put away more money, right? We're like a third of the way to the budget, and I need to just aggressively save, and I got to get a weekend job, and I got to keep working, and I got to hope that this like channel blows up a little to help maybe get some funding in the future. Thanks for watching. My name's Hunter. I work on TV shows. I'm a writer. I don't write for TV, not yet. But I do write things. I'm hoping to get a novel out next year, or at least finish it. I have screenplays. Unfortunately, unless those get developed into movies, no one's interested in them. So it's not like a product or something I can give you guys to enjoy. But hopefully one day one of my movies gets made, and then that's something I can totally push for you. If you like storytelling in any way, we talk about movies, video games, TV, all of it on this channel. So subscribe. Thanks.